You are listening to the CADDle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CADDle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CADDle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your elderly but still somehow jovial host, and with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco.
See, who's got all the joviality of a wet dish rag. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I must take you all through the engineering joke of the week. All right, Rocco, ready for your suffering?
I'm ready.
All right. What do you call a civil engineer's child?
I don't know. What do you call it?
You call that a truss fund baby.
Oh, good. They're getting worse.
Just when you think they can't get worse. I can always make it worse. Trust me. I go looking for those. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an old friend back on the show today. Mr. Tim Yarris, who is the Senior Product Manager for Civil 3D at Autodesk, is back once again. So, Tim, man, we really appreciate you being here, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's always a good time.
Yeah, until I tell the joke, and in which case...
This is true. Yeah, it was a good time until you told the joke. Yeah,
that's it. Oh, goodness. All right, folks. So today we are going to get into the 2027 release of Civil 3D and maybe some other Autodesk products and what cool toy Tim has brought to the table for us tech geeks to play with. Before that, though, let's give all of our new listeners a chance to learn a little bit about Tim. So, Tim, what should folks know about your background and what you do over at Autodesk?
Yeah, sure. So I'm like you said, I'm a senior group product manager here at Autodesk, and I'm responsible for just the overall roadmap and success of really our civil infrastructure product line. So the desktop product line. So figure Civil 3D, InfraWorks, structural bridge design, vehicle tracking, all those fun tools that you know and love. And so as part of that, I just kind of spend a great deal of time talking to customers to make sure that we understand the pain points that you folks are working through in your day-to-day lives with the products, and just making sure that we're kind of doing our best to balance those requirements against kind of where we want to go strategically with our products. And so it's a lot of kind of translating requirements from you folks into just requirements that our customers, or I'm sorry, not our customers, that our development team can actually implement into the software, and just making sure that we're making all the right decisions with the products. So it's a good time.
Yeah. And I will say, I think you guys are doing a good job on the Civil 3D side. All the civil infrastructure stuff has been very positive growth over the last few years, man.
That's great to hear. Yeah, we're really happy with the way that things have been going and the feedback that we've been getting too. So it's exciting stuff.
Definitely. All right, Tim is here because it is that time of year again, although we were just talking before the show, and Tim says always that time of year for him, when the new release of Autodesk drops, and all of our friends at Autodesk drop by for a visit. So Tim, being the king of all civil-related things over at Autodesk, he's kind of here to talk about Civil 3D 2027, having a hard time saying that today for some reason, and what his team has built into the latest and greatest, I guess, to make all of our design lives a little bit easier. So, Tim, what are kind of the big new things in 2027 that people should be looking into?
Yeah, sure. So there are a few themes that really stand out with 2027. So first thing that we did is this is all about, like you said, making your lives easier. And so the first thing that we're doing here is continuing to push into AI-assisted design workflows with this technology preview that we just released of our Autodesk Assistant in Civil 3D. So this tool is all about helping engineers spend less time digging through drawings and documentation and more time actually designing. So the Assistant can do things in this tech preview, things like analyzing models, checking standards, and even guiding users through issues directly in context of your model. Second area that we're looking at is we made a bunch of core design workflows more automated and just more trustworthy in general. So a great example of this is our new horizontal regression analysis, where we've added machine learning as an option, and more importantly, a live preview of the alignment directly in the drawing. And this really gives engineers a chance to validate and refine the results that they're getting before committing it to a resulting alignment. So it's not a black box. It's really more of an informed workflow. And then the third thing, we're continuing to invest heavily in our drainage and grading workflows. And I know I've talked about those a few times over the last few times I've been on the podcast. And these are really critical workflows for our customers. And so things like being able to make automated feature line, basically just making feature lines more performant, more stable, ease the creation of daylight feature lines, and then other things like being able to like add multiple slopes for channels, and then expanded catchment methods, all about just reducing manual work and improving accuracy. So really across the board, the focus has been really on just saving time, increasing confidence in the results that Civil 3D is giving you, and just making complex workflows more intuitive. So that's where we're at.
That's great stuff. And that's exactly what I meant at the top of the show when I said that you guys have really improved that. You've had a lot of focus on just making the operational processes easier and, like you said, more trustworthy. And it's just outstanding. I love that.
Great to hear.
Yeah. So I tell you what, and one interesting thing that I heard from Tim, both today and in his last few visits to the show, it's the idea of previews, right? Previews being included in the most recent Autodesk offerings. It's kind of a new process that I'm seeing coming out at Autodesk, and I'm not sure if it's part of a long-term development plan or if it's just an occasional thing. So I figured Tim was kind of the guy to let us know. So Tim, right, the daylight feature line and AI-enabled Autodesk Assistant, they're both labeled as technology previews in this release. So what does that mean in English for those of us who don't speak Autodesk tech?
Fair enough. So yeah, a technology preview it's really essentially an early access program inside the product. So it's a couple steps above a beta, but it's not quite production ready. And so this is kind of a construct that we're using across a bunch of our Autodesk products. So Civil's using it extensively. You're seeing it in AutoCAD and info drainage and plenty of other places. And so really when we release something in tech preview, it's really about giving customers the opportunity to try out new capabilities before they're fully finalized and production ready. So it's optional. You can opt into trying these things out. You can explore the functionality and give us some feedback that directly shapes how that particular feature evolves. From a practical standpoint, it really means a couple things. So it's first things first is it's the feature. It's real. It's usable, but we just want to, it's a way for us to set the expectations that it's still evolving. So it's just a flag that like, hey, you can try this out. We're very serious about implementing it. We're excited about it, but it's not quite where we want it to be just yet. Second thing is like just availability of these tech preview capabilities could vary depending on, sometimes the tech previews are just baked right into the core product. Sometimes they're available like through your account to download separately. So it just kind of depends on whether you download it, and then also whether, like, if you're in a large organization, if your admin has deemed it okay for you to download it and that sort of thing. And then again, it's all about just actively iterating based on what our customers are telling us about these things. And really, so for Autodesk, it's just a way for us to make sure that we're building something that's going to be the right solution, and not just shipping something that we think is okay and then hoping that it lands well. So it's a good way for us to kind of, like I said, just kind of, it's a couple steps above a beta where it's the quality's there, but there's some missing capabilities that we intend on building out, but we really want to get customer feedback on them before we kind of wrap them up. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I love the concept, just that you're getting tools into people's hands that can really have a great impact on their day-to-day work. But with a little flag like, hey, it's going to get better than it is today, right? Which is huge because it gives them that incentive to really work it through and get back to you with the info. I think it's fantastic. I love what you guys are doing there.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. So Rocco, let's wake you up. I mean, kind of talking about this, do you think that clients are interested in things like previews to start looking at new and future tools? Or do you think they're more focused on, like, what are the full function tools we have right now?
It depends on the user, right? I mean, you guys know people live in Civil 3D, right, all day long. And so, just offering them worth for what they're paying for and giving them a glimpse into what's coming down the road, I think it's super exciting. I think it's a great idea. So, we talk to users that are just, their heads are under the rocks and they're just doing what they're doing. And then we talk to people that are, get really excited about, what's coming up and the changes that are coming up and about learning the product. Civil 3D is like, it's a monster, right? That's why we offer so many classes here at Zentech, to get people really, really into using all different areas of the product. So, it depends on the user, but I think for the most part, it's an exciting functionality that's been added in.
All I heard in your answer is that you think most civil engineers live under rocks. That's all I got out of that.
Well,
All right, fair enough. I mean, you do know me, so all right, that's true. All right, folks. So look, we've talked about this on previous shows, right, with both Tim and Ramesh, who is his counterpart over on the recap side and was just here a couple of weeks ago. We talked about Autodesk's movement towards AI integrations directly inside your design products, right, to kind of help you speed up the design process. And one thing that I like is that Autodesk isn't just going all in on like some Chat GPT knockoff catch-all AI to just shove it in there and say we have it too. All right, but they're really carefully developing tools and they're vetting them before public release into their design systems. So Tim, I know you've talked to us about Autodesk Assistant in previous podcasts, right? What can it do in this release, and kind of where are you looking to take Autodesk Assistant in the future?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We are like intentionally being very, very careful about what we're doing with the assistant. We're not the first thing that are basically our guiding principle, at least for like the technology preview that we have in 2027 right now, is, I think I may have mentioned this on the last time I was on, but we're all about non-destructive workflows for the time being. So just giving things like being able to mine your model for data, giving you some information about your drawing so that you can make decisions, but we're not at this point giving the ability to like change geometry or change parameters of Civil 3D objects or anything like that. We're kind of dipping our toes in it first just to make sure that customers trust the results of it and we understand how it works as well as possible. But it's really coming along really nicely. And so, I mean, again, the tech preview itself with the assistant is really about bringing AI directly into the design environment in a meaningful way. So this tech preview can do things like, analyzing a drawing, summarizing what's in it. So just having an understanding of what Civil 3D objects are and kind of how they're built and all that kind of thing. You can do things like checking CAD standards, highlighting any issues that it finds in those standards, querying model data like pipe networks or object properties, highlighting and navigating to problem areas in the drawing based on like things that you like, parameters that you define as being potential problems. It can even help things with like visualization and analysis tasks like analyzing surface slopes and that sort of thing. And really what makes it different from previous iterations of the Autodesk Assistant is that it's not just answering generic questions and giving you help links. This thing's actually, it understands the drawing and the Civil 3D tools that are available to make changes in the drawing. And so it can look at your drawing without modifying it and really give you context-aware insights about it. So instead of asking like how a given tool works, you can ask something specific about your model and really get a meaningful answer. And then looking ahead, as far as the future is concerned with the assistant, the plan is to just keep expanding it into really deeper workflow assistance. Things like more advanced analysis, broader object support, and just really tighter integration with design tasks. And so over time, the goal is to move it from like being just an assistant towards something that's more of like a design partner. So we will be dipping our toes into like object creation and things like that in the longer term and optimizing results and deeper analysis. But yeah, for the time being, we're very steadily going into just more, like I said, non-destructive types of workflows. So some of the things that we're looking at for the nearer term for it, as far as like non-destructive things, are kind of typical customer pain points around like, think about like drawing performance and that sort of thing, like drawing hygiene and why is my drawing running slowly and stuff like that. And being able to help with some of those workflows and just give you information so that you can make decisions more quickly. So how's that sound to you? Does that make sense?
I think it makes perfect sense. And it's a great, so, you know, coming from the military, right? When the first thing you're always taught, there's every plan has to have 3 phases. It's crawl, walk, run.
Yep,
And the problem is that tech companies usually want to jump to run. And I'm thrilled that Autodesk has taken this approach where you started off as like a help, now you get into analytics and suggestions, and then, you know, down the road is when you'll be ready to run with it. And when you get there, it's going to be trustworthy data. I think it's the right approach.
Exactly. Yeah, trust is absolutely key for everything that we're doing with everything AI at Autodesk. So we have, I mean, I would give you a link if I was able to give you paste links into podcast. But yeah, I mean, we have like on the Autodesk main website, we have like this whole trust center that answers all the questions about like, what is Autodesk doing with my data and what sort of LLMs are being used and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're being as transparent and open as possible so that we can make sure that we're keeping our customers' trust.
Beautiful way to do it. All right, folks, let's take a quick commercial break. And when we get back, I'm going to ask Tim about some of the civil specific tools, right, that we now have available in 2027 and what we can do with them. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the CADDle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you guys today about Managed CAD Services by ZenTech Consultants. Look, every one of us out there in the design space, we're looking for that power person who can handle all of your standards and templates and file structures and answer all your CAD problems. But we run into 2 big issues. Number one, those folks don't come cheap, especially when you start adding in all of the taxes, insurances, and time off and stuff you got to add in. And then you've got to find someone that you can trust. And that's where ZenTech Consultants come in, because I got to figure you guys are listening to us every week talk. You got to trust us. And we come in and handle all your CAD management needs for you with our Managed CAD Services contracts, an annual contract where we can be your CAD manager, doing all the things that you need done for an affordable rate with people whose technology acumen you know and trust. So Rocco, why don't you tell folks where they can find out more about Managed CAD Services and get the ball rolling?
Yep, you can hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net. And if you go into the services section, you'll be able to see the details. You could also give us a call, 866-824-4459, or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go. All the CAD management help that you need but have not been able to get is available with Managed CAD Services by ZenTech Consultants. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CADDle Call Podcast. We're talking with Tim Yarris of Autodesk about the release of Civil 3D 2027 and what its capabilities are. And in the top half of the show, we talked about general processes and some AI growth. And in this half of the show, I want to get into some details on some of the more civil-focused tools. So Tim, a big new feature that I've seen is the daylight feature line. Can you explain that to our listeners, what it is and kind of how it works?
Yeah, you bet. So this is another tech preview because it's missing a couple of things that we really know that it needs to do in the long term. But like, again, customers have told us, the customers that we started working with on this, when we got to the point where we had to lock things down for the new release, customers were like, it's still useful as it is, so please give it to us now. So this is also a tech preview, so just setting expectations with customers, just that there's still work being done on this particular capability. But basically what it is it's one of those features that you're going to find you'll immediately feel some time savings with it. So traditionally, creating daylight lines from a grading can be fairly manual, and the resulting feature line has to be tied to just that more complex grading object. And so what we've done in 2027 is we introduced this daylight feature line generation directly from grading criteria. So basically what this means is that you can generate a daylight line using just grading criteria, the same grading criteria that you would use to have a grading object, but you're just getting the feature line itself, not the overhead of the overall grading object.
Ooh, that's
So
nice.
yeah, so it's lighter weight. It kind of takes away some of that like traditional stability issues that often come along with grading objects. They're getting better, but this just takes that out of the mix altogether. So so currently, yeah, you can generate that daylight feature line from grading criteria. The resulting feature line you can edit just like you can with the regular old feature line tools. And really it's pretty slick. It's currently, like I mentioned, that it was not like, there's still some gaps in it that we want to fill. It's not dynamic to like the parent feature line. So like it's a one-shot deal. It's like that one-shot daylight line, and you have to like it doesn't react changes to the baseline feature line. So that's a work in progress. But again, the customers we talked to were like, "Hey, that's still very useful as it is. We want it now." So, but yeah. So I mean, you get that that great starting point as a first pass, and then you can keep on working with it just like you can with your regular feature line tools. And then, I mean, even beyond that, we've just continued to improve just general feature line stability and performance that we've been working on for the last couple of releases. And that's really just all about just addressing some long-standing pain points around just editing and reliability for feature lines as a whole. So yeah, so it's still a tech preview, but we've actually been getting a ton of really positive feedback from people that have kind of started playing around with it since 2027 was released. So yeah, I'm optimistic about how much this one's going to help people.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I mean, that's a functionality that would have, when I was doing designing, that would have been huge to me. We spent a lot of time taking the grading objects, because what you run into with that is, you're doing like a pad site for like a McDonald's or whatever it is, and you got one person who's working that because it's got detailed specific design requirements for the client, and you just want to stay outside of their area. And you're like, can you just give me the daylight line and I can grade up to the edge? And we used to do it back in the old days, right? We create the grading object and then explode it to get the grade. And then in the last couple of years, you're able to extract the feature line, but it's a manual process. I love this idea. That's a huge benefit right there. I love
that's great. Good to hear.
Yeah.
So is the dynamic nature of it, is that like a deal breaker? Is it useful without it being
it's immensely
dynamic?
useful because like I said, a lot of times it's a preliminary design set. Like I said, I've got Rocco's going to be working on that pad site. I'm working on the parking lot around it, and kind of a commercial setup, and it's enough. I can get there and then we can tweak later. But when you get it to full dynamic structure, it's going to be even better.
Nice. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I see a lot of benefit there. That's cool. So
Awesome.
That's the kind of stuff I love. So, hey, look, with every release, right? That's it. We all want to see the productivity features more than anything. Things like user interface and speed improvements, and even the native language AI, all of that help stuff. That's great, right? We do. We see the benefit, but at the end of the day, I think everybody listening, they want to know about the actual performance tools like that daylight line that are going to make systems like Civil 3D smarter, and it's going to make their own job easier, right? So with that in mind, Tim, what are some of the other Civil 3D tools that are kind of new and exciting this year?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot in this release, but I mean, I guess one of the other main things is the overall categories that I'll call out is just related to drainage. So like I think I've said a couple times previously, we spent a ton of time recently just on our on our drainage capabilities in Civil 3D. And so we've continued down that path with 2027. So one of the big things that we have is, I think I mentioned earlier, just supporting multiple slopes for channels. So we released channels as part of, I think, the 2026.1 release. And so one of the first things that customers really were found that was missing is that it was just a single longitudinal slope. And so basically what you had to do to get around that was string a whole bunch of channels together in order to vary the slope. So this one's a big one for drainage design. So you can now just define multiple different slopes across segments and everything. And that's just gives you just a much better workflow than having to kind of string a whole bunch of them together. And so again, one of the most requested enhancements that we got from customers as far as our new drainage tools were concerned. So I'm super happy to have that one in there. A bunch of enhancements to catchments. So add some new methods like FFA and Kerpitch. And so it's all about just giving customers just more complete drainage solutions just from directly within Civil 3D. And then that just goes with that overall new drainage workflow that we have in Civil 3D, that just the cloud-based like analysis that's powered by info drainage tools. Then I think the last thing really, we did a bunch of improvements to underground storage. So these now behave just like any other native objects that do in Civil 3D. So things like having just Civil 3D styles and naming and properties. And so it's just a much more consistent experience for those underground storage objects. It just feels more like a Civil 3D object. And then so really just overall, it's just about just removing friction in real world workflows and not just adding the features, but just making day-to-day work smoother for you. So yeah, a lot of good stuff happening on drainage.
Yeah. And it's funny that you should bring that up today. Literally about an hour ago, Rocco and I were on a call with a client who was asking about all the updates to drainage in 2026 and 27 and what we thought and how they were going. And I was selling it pretty hard. I'm like, dude, it's a dramatic step in the right direction. Moving away. Look, the old stuff is fine and it's great, but having to go out to SSA and deal with everything and extract it for hydrology and back and getting to integrating. He was absolutely loving the concept that you could handle the bulk of the daily needs for drainage and catchment and all that stuff in Civil 3D with native Civil 3D objects rather than having to go to a secondary program.
Yeah, without the whole import export and losing data between them and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, it's a big thing. A lot of folks are doing that. So hey, Rocco, talking about clients, right? We've been doing just an absolute ton. Believe me, I know I don't ever get to sleep at night now. We've been doing a ton of work in the Civil 3D space this year. So from your conversation with clients, are they pleased with Civil 3D performance overall and kind of planning to continue with it, long term?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, folks complain about the pricing of Autodesk products, but I can't remember when the last time was that somebody said I'm moving away from Civil 3D. It just, it's the king out there, and folks are just loving it, and they want to get more and more into use of the different areas of the product. So yeah, you guys are doing a great job, Tim. Keep it up.
There you
That's
go.
fantastic to hear, Rocco. Thanks.
So look, I think Autodesk has also been making a lot of effort, I guess, in performing upgrades that aren't just single package specific with every release. In other words, we've been seeing a lot of cross-platform updates and tools and processes that apply to multiple systems, right? Particularly in the suites like the AEC Collection. And I was reading online about 2027. I see there are a bunch of great tools in some of the other AEC tools, right? Like base AutoCAD has even gotten some really nice upgrades and tie-ins and stuff in this release. So what about that, Tim? What about AutoCAD and similar system? What exciting stuff is kind of happening over there in this 2027 drop?
Yeah, one of the great things about Civil 3D is, you don't just get the Civil 3D tools, but you get all the AutoCAD enhancements we get for free. So it's just everything that they do just directly benefits us. And we talk to so many customers who, they use plenty of the Civil 3D tools, the alignments and profiles and surfaces and all that kind of good stuff, but they just use the heck out of just base AutoCAD geometry and annotations and stuff like that. So anything that AutoCAD does just to their core workflows is just a tremendous benefit to Civil users. And one of them actually that just core AutoCAD workflow that they've really improved, and it's actually a new capability. It's called Geometry Cleanup, and this addresses just everyday pain points of customers. And so if you've worked with CAD data, which you have, obviously.
Once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice, yeah. So it's geometry can get messy. And so that's kind of the basic construct that they work from. So think about when you get like tiny, tiny little gaps between lines or overlapping lines or misaligned angles and stuff like that. So things that just aren't really visible, but you can totally break things downstream. So especially like when you do things like spit out a bunch of lines and curves and stuff like that, and then go to like convert those to like feature lines or alignments and stuff like that. You don't see those little breaks or goof ups in your geometry until the Civil 3D element has been created, and then it takes that much more time to unwind it.
Yep.
So with geometry cleanup, it really just brings a more guided, visual, and really semi-automated approach to just solving that problem before it mucks things up downstream. And so it just scans a drawing, identifies issues like gaps and overshoots and undershoots, and highlights them directly in the model and gives you some suggested fixes. So really, instead of just like doing all the manual hunting and like panning and zooming way in to look for problems and stuff like that, or relying on a whole bunch of disconnected commands, it just gives you like a really quick single workflow that helps you find, review, and resolve those types of issues really quickly. And so again, I mean, this is just helps you downstream where you get cleaner drawings, fewer errors for things like hatching and quantity takeoffs and model generation. Your files are more reliable when you're sharing them with teams. And again, it's just spending less time on what's essentially just rework, stuff that's not creative. And so it just gives you a better starting point before you convert any of that line work to Civil 3D feature lines or alignments. And really, I mean, when you combine all that stuff, that type of stuff with just the broader investments that we're making in like the Autodesk Assistant and like those performance improvements that we were just talking about, you're really seeing AutoCAD just evolving to be a bit more intelligent, more automated, and just more resilient as a foundation for Civil 3D. And again, that just translates to just everything that AutoCAD does when that type of stuff just results in a smoother experience for civil customers too. So it's great stuff. We're super excited about the AutoCAD stuff.
Yeah, that's an important one. I was laughing as you were saying, I was, oh my God, I mean, how many times I've gone in and tried to convert a polyline into a feature line and define like a corridor off of it,
yep.
Not realizing there was like a 1/16 of an inch gap at the point of curvature. Yep. And then you get the bow ties and the thing. It's like, what is going on with the corridor?
What the heck is happening here?
It's hours of work.
Yeah, and just trying to find those things. I mean, just having to zoom in for that 1/16 of an inch gap is just mind-boggling. Your eyes cross with just trying to find those little mistakes. So yeah, this is what AI is good at, just finding little things like that and just helping you make a decision for it. So it's really good stuff.
I like it. All right, folks. So as always, we're going to wrap up today's show by letting Tim tell us something that I didn't know I should ask him about. So, all right, Tim, what about it, my friend? What other important thoughts from your brilliant mind do you want to share with our listeners today?
Important, brilliant thoughts. I don't know if I have anything brilliant or anything, but so maybe I'll just leave you kind of with a teaser. So we have some great stuff in 2027, but we've got some really, really amazing stuff that's under development right now. So starting at Autodesk University, you're going to start seeing us first just pulling our AEC portfolio together in ways that we've really never been able to before. So, but customers have been begging us to do for years, right? So we've got all these great products, but they don't always work as seamlessly as they should. So look for that. And then beyond AU, you're going to start seeing some core Civil 3D workflows that are kind of turned upside down, just making them more flexible, more connected, and just more intelligent. So a lot of good stuff happening this year, and I'm hoping that next year you guys will have me back on at this time, and I'll be able to share a bit more about kind of where we land on some of those things. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled. More exciting stuff is coming.
Nice. All right, and we always have you on, but here's where I throw in and point out to people. I'm going to translate what Tim just said, and I have no idea what he's talking about, but I'm saying here's what I heard, and it has no bearing on it. We're going to Autodesk, so I can say this where Tim can't. I've been here for a lot of years that Autodesk is moving to a centralized data model so we can work on civil and architectural in the same data space with different programs. That's the kind of stuff that would be absolutely amazing. I'm just saying.
I didn't
it's
say
out
that.
There.
I didn't say that, Jim.
He didn't say that at all.
No, I did not. You're putting words into my mouth, Jim.
Yeah, I am. I'm just saying. That's what I heard.
Man.
All right, you can ignore me, folks. I just make things up as I go along. All right. So with that, we are going to get out of here. But before we do, I just want to say thank you one more time, Tim. It's always a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Likewise, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a good time.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day, all, and we'll catch you next time on the CADDle Call Podcast.
All right, everybody. Today's CADDle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.